All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Shamas. I'm a sales tech here at Nagios Enterprises. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on Nagios Fusion. There will be quite a few different organizations joining in today, so I'll be giving you a higher level overview of Nagios Fusion and its capabilities, but after this session, you should have a really good idea of how to get around the Fusion interface, how Fusion works, the value it can provide, and we will also in this session be talking a bit about the new Fusion features and the new major release of Fusion since Nagios Fusion 4.0 just launched. One thing I'll note is that audio feeds from you guys will be muted during the session, but if you have any questions, go ahead and type those into the chat or the questions section of the GoToWebinar interface, and then at the end of the session, I'll be sure to leave plenty of time to cover those for you. If you have other questions beyond what we can cover here today, you can always contact us by email at sales@nagios.com, and we'll do everything we can to answer those for you. And also, if you'd like a custom demo, either for Fusion or our other solutions or a combination of tools, feel free to email us again at sales@nagios.com, and we'll put together a custom demo for you. And finally, we will be recording today's session, so it can be made available to others online in the future. So with that being said, let's jump over to our agenda slide and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So first off, we'll talk about what Nagios Fusion is, when it would be used, what the general high-level value of Fusion is and how it works, and we'll also talk quickly about the new features and changes in Fusion 4, which, as I said, just launched. And then we'll jump into Fusion. We'll talk about the home dashboard and the various visualizations that are there. We'll talk about the views and dashboards in Fusion, much like those that are in Nagios XI. We'll talk about adding new servers to sync up with Fusion to show you their data in Fusion. And then we'll talk about administering Fusion from the perspective of things like creating users and managing some of the system performance settings that are built in, and a lot of which are actually new in Fusion 4. So talking briefly about what Fusion is, how it works. Basically, Fusion's designed to provide you with a way to visualize the operational status of a bunch of different Nagios servers across your organization and all of the hosts and services that they're checking. Fusion works with both XI and Nagios Core, so it works great with Nagios Core open source. It works great with Nagios XI. It does have some features that work specifically with XI, and I will highlight some of those as we go along. But really, it's the ideal solution, whether you're using Core or XI, to help you keep track of all the elements across your entire network, even in a situation where you're using a bunch of Nagios servers. It's got, as I said, customizable dashboards and views. Another nice thing about Fusion is that communication between Fusion and the Nagios servers, and so that's an important architectural point. Nagios Fusion doesn't actually get data from the Nagios servers. What Fusion does is it reaches out to them periodically to pull them and pull back data about the hosts and services they're monitoring. And a nice thing there is that communication between Fusion and the Nagios servers is just standard web ports. It's 80 or 443, HTTP or HTTPS. So it's typically fairly easy to get the okay to set up Fusion and have it to connect to your Nagios servers, even in a big environment where you've got a lot of security protocols in place. Fusion is also nice because it provides a way to quickly drill down to the interfaces of the Nagios servers. So right from the Fusion interface, you can drill down either to the home page of your various servers or drill down from Fusion to pre-filtered lists of specific hosts and services that you might want to visualize based on some of the displays that are in Fusion. So not only does it show you everything in one place, but Fusion also provides you with the ability to quickly get to those Nagios servers so that you can take further action, do reporting, look at those pre-filtered lists, acknowledge alerts, and things like that. So Fusion provides a lot of value, especially in a bigger environment, of course. And what we'll do now is take a quick look at actually some of the new Fusion features. So let's jump over to this slide real quick and talk a little bit about what's changed. So Fusion just got its first major release in a couple of years, and a lot has changed. So first off, you see blazingly fast. It was basically a complete overhaul of the underlying code, and rebuilding that backend makes things faster, makes pulling servers much quicker, and provides you with the ability to visualize even larger infrastructures. It's very truly scalable, again, because of that rework of the underlying code. It's very scalable. And so you can look at, as I said, more instances of Nagios inside of, more Nagios instances inside of Fusion, and it all works together much more nicely. As far as the complete integration point, the rework of the underlying code also resulted in not an immediate benefit where you're going to see it right now in the first initial release of Fusion, but it did open up the framework so that as time goes on, we will be able to integrate more and more elements into Fusion. For example, integrating some of our other tools like Nagios Log Server and Network Analyzer. So right now, as you saw, it works with Nagios XI and Core very nicely, serves a great purpose there, but as time goes on, because of that rework, it's now opened up so that we can do much stronger integration, add much cooler features. So keep an eye on Fusion. This is just the beginning. What's happened now, this first release of 4.0 is just the beginning of Fusion's kind of rebirth as an even stronger solution. It's got a very nice reworked user interface. It's much more in line with the rest of our solutions. So if you're using XI, if you're using Log Server, Fusion's going to look very familiar right now. The last version of Fusion looked a lot like older XI, whereas the new version of Fusion is right in line. It'll match up right with the rest of our solutions as far as how the menus look, how the interface works. Another nice thing, and a small point, but for some people who have big environments and make a lot of dashboards, this is going to be a big change. The Dashlets, which I'll demonstrate for you, that you would add to dashboards, can now actually be modified individually after you've created them. So in the past, you'd make a Dashlet, you'd add that visualization to a custom dashboard, and if you wanted to change something, you'd actually have to delete it and add it again. Well, now in Fusion, you just hit the configure icon and boom, you can modify any granular setting of that Dashlet you want to, and instead of starting from scratch, just change it up right there on the fly, live in the dashboard. So that's really cool. Another nice thing is the multi-tenancy side of things. In the past, everyone who logged into the Fusion interface to look at all the Nagios servers would drill down to each Nagios server as a specific user, just one universal user, typically a super administrator, which is nice if everyone in Fusion is a super admin that you want to have full capabilities over, say, on the Nagios XI side. But multi-tenancy is something we got a lot of requests for, and so that was a big focus of Fusion 4, was setting it up so you can actually determine what user on the Nagios XI side should this user in Fusion enter XI as. And so it's got real multi-tenancy. Each person has unique visibility and capability within Fusion. I will mention that right now for this initial release, that multi-tenancy is limited to Nagios XI. We do have plans to implement that for Nagios Core in the near future as well, but at this time it would be set up just for Nagios XI server, so the multi-tenancy element wouldn't apply to Core quite yet, but we're hoping that it does in the future. That's a quick look at some of the new features. Now let's actually just jump right into the Fusion interface and take a look at what's going on here. So here it is. This is Fusion 4. This is the new version. When we first log in, this is actually a custom dashboard we've put together, but this can, of course, show any variety of different dashlets and information that you'd like to see when you first log in. If we look up on the upper left, we see we've got a tactical overview, which we'll click through to real quick. And so the first panel here, which can be added to a dashboard, keep an eye out for this upward pointing arrow icon. Anywhere you see that, that can go on a dashboard. So the first dashlet here that we see in the tactical overview is a status overview of all servers. So we can see how many items are in what particular states across all the Nagios servers. And in this case, we're collecting data from 4 servers. And you've got the ability up top to sort by server name, sort by up hosts, OK services, all hosts, all services. Underneath that, we've got individual panels for each of the Nagios servers. So we've got a couple core servers, a couple XI servers sending data in. And you'll notice some of these are actually hyperlinks. So for instance, if I wanted to look at all the down hosts on this XI demo box, you're able to just click this icon, and it'll open up a new tab and bring you to a pre-filtered list on this Nagios XI server where you can see all of those. And for example, click through and acknowledge an alert if you'd like to. So that's a really useful feature of Fusion, not only showing it all to you in one place, but as we've discussed up to this point, also drilling down to pre-filtered lists to those Nagios servers and getting to them quickly, all from a centralized portal. You've also got the tactical summary. And this is actually going to, in one single table, list all the Nagios servers that are connected and then show you how many items are in particular states. And again, you can click through to those pre-filtered lists from here. You've got Network Operations Center. And with this tool, you're able to see open host problems and open problems. And these, of course, being the items that have been detected as in a problem state in Nagios, but have not yet been acknowledged by an administrator. So a human hasn't yet come in and said, hey, I'm aware of the issues. And that way, Nagios will list them as just a regular problem instead of an open or an unhandled problem. You can also view recent alerts, and of course this would be recent alerts across all of the Nagios servers. So you see the server it's related to, the time it came in, the host and service, the particular state that's changed. So you've also got the plugin output here on the far right of the table. Top alert producers, again, across all the Nagios servers. These are the problem children. So it's nice to be able to jump into one Nagios server and say, what are my top alert producers? Say, for example, with the top alert producers in a Nagios XI server. But to be able to do that same thing from a centralized point for many Nagios servers is a really useful feature. And so here you can look at those top alerts. You can prioritize what you need to remediate most quickly, and also click through on these two. You can also look at host health and service health visualizations, just quick graphs demonstrating for you what items or what quantity of items are in particular states across those Nagios servers. And note that this can go on a dashboard, and you can also export these as a PNG, a JPEG, a PDF, a vector image. So you do have the ability to move these out of Fusion as well and use them for other purposes. Also service health, same concept. How many items are in particular statuses across those Nagios servers. It's dashboardable. That's the Dashify icon. It can be exported just like the other one. Now, so you've got these nice overviews here in the home menu. You've also got the same views and dashboards capabilities that you'd be used to with Nagios XI. So we'll go to dashboards here real quick and just show you a few that I've put together for the demo here. So here's the first one, the home dashboard, an open problem summary across all servers. Open host problems, open service problems, information about the status of the Fusion system and server stats for a quick heads up that Fusion is working okay and that all of my servers that Fusion's able to fetch data from all my servers properly. We've got a Fusion server health dashboard, so this uses some of the various dashlets in Fusion dedicated to helping you make sure that Fusion is working properly. So we can see our Fusion server stats, subsystem status, server stats again, quick link to administrative tasks. And then I've also got some key service graphs here. And so here we're basically looking at just a collection of graphs for various items. And so you'll note that you can pin these and unpin these if you'd like to move them around. And I'll also note that, as I'd said when we kind of looked at what's new in Fusion, in the past if you wanted to recreate a dashlet, you'd actually need to delete it and start again. Well, in this case, in the new Fusion, now you can just edit it. So here, for example, I've got this as .41 port 3 bandwidth. If we wanted to change even what this graph is representing, you can just hit the configure icon, and now we can pick which server that particular service we want to graph is on, which host, which particular service. We can also modify common settings like the title. Maybe we want this to have yellow background, for instance, the padding and refresh rate, and then we update our dashlet, and Fusion takes that into account. You can also determine whether you want to see the title or not. So we could click the eye icon and negate that top title. So a lot of ways to customize and customize on the fly, which is a big time saver. And as you can see here, you can actually have all the way down to drilled down graphs for specific services on dashboards in Fusion. You've also got one I created, just top alerts. So all the top alerts as we saw in the home top alert producers, alongside all the recent alerts, and then a tactical summary of all the servers on one quick and handy page. You can go to available dashlets to see all of the dashlets that are built in. So you could add a custom URL. As we saw, lots of different dashlets dedicated to helping you make sure Fusion is working okay, all the way down to the status of an individual host. So for example, we could add this to our dashboard, and we could say I want to add this to the home dashboard, and we'll go to our XI demo box, and we'll just pick a service real quick here, and basically this will give us the status of this particular host, and we'll give this one a blue background, and that should be good. And then we'll add this to our dashboard. So that's going to go on the home dashboard, and now we've got that new panel there, and you know, it's probably taking up a little more space than it needs to since it's not showing a lot of info, and we can just drag that down to the bottom of our dashboard and have that right alongside the rest of the information that we've got here. So whether it's a tactical overview showing many items, or all the way down to a graph or a status detail for a very specific item, you've got a lot of flexibility to create these dashboards. I'll also mention that with the dashlets, you can also add it to one called Screen, and I'll mention real quick what that actually is. Good use case might be the open problem summary. Might be something that you want to see on every page. So I'll show you that real quick. Instead of adding it to a dashboard, we're going to add this to Screen. And again, we can make it any color we'd like to, give it a custom title if you'd like to, so on and so forth. Now, when we add this, you're actually going to notice that that'll start showing up on any page. And this is free floating. So essentially, this would be something that you really want to see on every page. You can size it however you want. And as you bounce around your various pages, this particular visualization is gonna go along with you, and it's gonna be on every page, and you can put it anywhere you'd like to. So there's a lot of use cases for that. If you do have a particular thing that you want to show up on every page that you know you're gonna want to reference pretty much no matter where you are, you can choose the screen option and then add it there very easily. And then the dashboards, just like in Nagios XI, they can be added to views. And so basically just go to the drop down in the upper right, the menu drop down here, and then go to add to my views, pick that, and then it'll just pop it over to your views rotation. And then here is where you can take basically any page from either within Fusion, as we saw here, or an external URL, and rotate through those at a speed of your choosing between 10 and 60 seconds a slide. And this is a great example of something that was updated just to match how Nagios XI does it. So you can just go to Manage My Views, pick anything you want to add here, or pick one from the page you're on to add to views, and it'll just rotate through these. So it's perfect for a network operations center. If you've got a big screen up and you want to put this screen up, this is perfect to just kind of rotate through those useful pieces of information on a schedule, and works out to be a really nice feature as well. Now, another great thing about Fusion is how easy it is to set things up. So we're going to jump over to the admin menu real quick and talk about managing fused servers. So it's very simple to tell Nagios Fusion to start collecting data from a Nagios server. Now, one thing I'll note, because this is new, is that if you are using Nagios XI and you've upgraded to the new Fusion or just started trying out the new Fusion, one option you've got here when you fuse a server is, instead of just entering a username and a password to authenticate to that server, you can enter a fuse key. So you enter a server name, you pick the type, you enter the URL to get to that particular Nagios server, and then you can either enter a username or a password, or a fuse key optionally as an additional thing you can do. So the importance here is that if you don't enter the fuse key, the multi-tenancy side of things, where each person has a unique visibility and capability based on their user on the Nagios XI side, actually doesn't function. So you need to use the fuse key functionality in order for that to work. Now, over in Nagios XI, that fuse key can be fetched in the admin menu, and we'll go to System Settings and then Integration, so the far right tab in Admin System Settings. And here you can find your fuse key. So with that fuse key, you can then connect back to the Nagios XI server. So we take our fuse key, we drop that into Fusion, and you can always test the Fusion settings to make sure that those work. And now we'll enter a username and password, and we'll test our settings, and we'll just, oh, yep, and of course we have to enter the IP address so that Fusion can get a hold of it. A little bit more information to enter here, so we'll get that in there so it knows where to go, and we'll call this our XI Demo 2. There we go. So now we'll test our settings. Looks like everything looks great. You can also right here adjust your authentication and polling interval. Basically, how often Fusion's going to check in and make sure that it can authenticate properly to this XI server, how often it's going to actually poll it for new data. By default, you're at 300 seconds, a 5-minute interval, but you can modify that here if you'd like to, or later on. And then you can enter a server location, the time zone for it, and some notes. And that's another cool thing, is that in the new Fusion, it does actually account for time zones. So it's going to show you all the data time-stamped for the time zone that you're actually in. In the past, Fusion would show you the data based on the time zone it came from, and if you've got a big global deployment, that can be kind of confusing because you could be in the US and you're looking at data from a Nagios server in the UK, and it's actually 6 hours ahead of you, but it looks like it came from the future essentially. In the new Fusion, it simplifies all of that. It basically correlates everything, no matter what time zone it came from, to your personal time zone where you're at looking at the Fusion interface. So that's a huge help for people with global deployments. And of course, the people with globally dispersed deployments are the people most likely to use Fusion. So that should be a big help to you as well. And once you get your information here, you just fuse your server. That's going to show up here as XI Demo 2. And because we used, as I said, that fuse key authentication, when we add users, we can actually determine which of the users over on the XI side they're going to visualize information in Fusion based on and drill down to the XI servers as. So moving along, if we go to Manage Users, we can add a new user, but what I'll do is actually go and modify one we've already set up here. So I'll go to Edit, and we'll scroll down here, and we're actually determining, so on this Dev 182XI, XI Demo 2, we're actually determining which of those users we're going to correlate with. Which user, this JSmith user, is going to actually see things within Fusion as and drill down to that XI server as. And so that's a really nice feature. That's, as I said, something that's been widely requested, and one of the big changes in the new version of Fusion that should make a big difference in larger environments. Just remember, as I said, to use the fuse key. But as far as users, you can add a new one right here. Just enter the username, their password, their name, their email address. Not that Fusion will email a lot, but it could send out system messages at times. And then their mappings can be determined here too if you'd like, as well as language and time zone and things like that. Now, another big change in Fusion 4 is system settings. You've got a lot of options here now. And so you do have some basic logging settings to determine, where and how you'd like Fusion to log data, just basically based on its own performance. You've also got data and polling, which is completely new. So you can set a global authentication interval, global polling interval, and then you can also adjust things like polling subsystem memory limit. And you shouldn't really have to adjust most of this in most cases, but definitely look at the tooltips here because, for example, simultaneous pollers. If we look at this, it states quite clearly that one poller should be sufficient, but if you're connecting to at least one large system, and by that it means one Nagios system that's monitoring a ton of hosts and services, you may want to increase this value. So definitely check out the tooltips, look at basically what each of these does. Again, leaving them at the default should be fine in most cases, but depending on what the tooltip recommends for your specific use case, it might be worth adjusting some of these as well. So that's all new. You've got a lot more control over how Fusion approaches pulling data from the other systems, how often it does it, and a ton of other features that are big change in Fusion 4 here. And then, of course, you've got your email settings for system messages. If you try out Fusion, it's going to work out great for you. You can enter your license key here and license information. One thing I'll mention, for those of you that may have the old version of Fusion and be choosing to upgrade sometime soon, one thing I'll mention is that when you upgrade to the new Fusion, you can do an inline upgrade. It's a piece of cake. You will need to recreate your dashboards, and you will also need to re-enter your license key. So those two things will need to be done. Otherwise, the upgrade is very fast, very simple, very seamless. But you will need to remake your dashboards. But it's kind of cool. You get to recreate those using the new Dashlets and the new setup and interface. And then you will need to just enter your license key again, and you'll be all set. You can go to system status to see those server stats as well that we saw in our Fusion Health dashboard. You can view the Fusion Air log. And all the various Fusion logs, and then managing components, Dashlets, defaults, things like that can all be done here. So that's a quick walkthrough of the Fusion interface, quick information about the new version of Fusion. Wanted to talk real quick about the licensing side of things, the support options, the free trial and all of that, and remind everybody that if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to help. Go ahead and post those in the questions or the chat section of the GoToWebinar interface, and then we'll be sure to cover those in just a couple of seconds here. So talking about using Fusion pricing, very simple. Fusion is priced very reasonably for the Fusion server, and as many Nagios servers as you can plug into it. So there's no limit to how many Nagios servers from a licensing perspective you can actually view with Fusion. Just a flat rate that includes a year of support and maintenance benefits, and also a free backup failover and a free testing and development Fusion install. So very reasonably priced. And we do offer the free, fully functional 60-day trial, which you can find at nagios.com. Very easy to get to. Just go to nagios.com, go to the download section, and you'll see it right here. So lots of different download options. You can download it as a Hyper-V VM, as a VMware VM, so nice virtual appliances running on CentOS that are very quick and easy to get going with. Otherwise, you can also do a manual install onto your RHEL or CentOS Linux system. So that's fairly simple to do as long as it's a fresh vanilla install with internet access. It's very simple to do the install. So lots of ways to approach that. And then during your trial, you've got a variety of different support options. You've got support.nagios.com/forum, where you can register a username on the upper right here and then post in general support as a pre-sales client in any of these sections. Here's the Fusion section, and I get direct help from the same support techs you'd work with as a licensed client on any questions you've got. So you kind of get to test out the support in advance of purchase and get a feel for what it's like to work with the techs, and of course get some expert guidance from them. You've also got the Knowledgebase, and that's support.nagios.com/KB. And here on the Knowledgebase, you can find hundreds of technical articles, tutorials, documentation links to help you solve common problems, accomplish more advanced tasks, learn how to use the solutions, learn how to install and configure the solutions. So Knowledgebase should be a really good resource for you. You'll see a Nagios Fusion section with 20 separate articles, so that's a really good resource as well. So you've got the free trial, the general support forum, the Knowledgebase, and our YouTube channel is a final resource that could be of great use to you. And that's just youtube.com/Nagios video. And here you'll find a bunch of tutorial videos, conference presentations, tons of things to help you use our solutions and make the most of them. And so that should be a really good resource for you too. And between all of that, you've just got a ton of different ways to get help, get started, and have a successful proof of concept and really try the tool out. So that's a quick walkthrough of Fusion, quick walkthrough of the licensing options, the free trial, all of that. I did want to help with any questions you guys have. I saw a couple come up, and the first one is a great question. How many Nagios servers can a single Fusion install support? So the Fusion has been significantly improved. It's never really had high overhead, but it wasn't completely optimized under the hood. A lot of optimization went into the new version, as you know, and in our beta tests, we actually did have one particular tester who had 100 Nagios servers plugged into Fusion, and it worked. We did actually make some changes as a result of that particular test to help it perform better with lots of different servers. But we do have a use case where 100 Nagios servers were all plugged into a single Fusion interface, and it worked. So we don't really have specific data on the actual limit. Of course, it would depend on things like your polling interval. It would depend on things like the strength of the Fusion server, but it would be unlikely that you would hit a point where you've got so many Nagios servers that a single Fusion couldn't handle it. Mainly, Fusion not only has it been optimized, but also it's just going to the Nagios servers and polling them for data. So it's not really crunching a lot of numbers itself. It's just pulling the data back up and then displaying it for you. So it's not doing checks and it's not doing alerts. So it has significantly less overhead than, say, a Nagios XI server would. So yeah, sorry I can't give you an exact answer. We don't have specific data, but we have seen tests done up to 100 Nagios servers, and it worked great. And as I said, was optimized a little bit to better accommodate for that. So next question I see is about Fusion reporting, and so that's an excellent question. And I should make clear that Fusion is an excellent tool to give you centralized visibility, centralized tactical display of multiple Nagios servers. That's the high value that Fusion provides. But it is not a reporting tool. It is not an alerting tool at this time. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. Going back to the Fusion updates, because of the rework, it actually does open up Fusion to, in the future, have more capabilities to do things like that. And obviously, I don't have any information on the time frame of that. It's not like in 2 months or 6 months or a year that's going to be the case. But I can tell you that because of the rework of the underlying framework, Fusion is now capable of doing things like that, like providing, for instance, centralized reporting and things like that, or providing centralized integration with Network Analyzer and Log Server. So at this time, as it's always been, Fusion is excellent in that it's a centralized tactical display of many Nagios servers. But again, it was reworked almost specifically to not only make it faster, but also to enable it to, in the future, do things like centralized reporting and stuff like that. So again, no specific time frame, I'm not making any promises, but everything that needs to be is now in place for that to happen. So as we develop it in the future, the framework will support things like that. So definitely keep an eye on how Fusion evolves over the next couple of years. But as it stands, it'd be centralized visibility rather than centralized reporting and alerting. That kind of stuff would happen on the individual XI servers or core servers, which you can drill down to with a click. So you can get there very quickly, but they would all kind of be their separate world. Fusion would simply be the place where you're visualizing all of that data. Excellent questions. Really appreciate you guys asking those. Don't see any other questions, so we're going to wrap up for today, but if you do need anything else, feel free to email sales@nagios.com. We'd love to hear from you, find out more about your requirements, and outline how we could be a help. Otherwise, I really appreciate you guys taking time out of what I'm sure were busy schedules to join me here today. We'll look forward to hearing from you soon, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thanks again for joining me, everybody.